So, tell me, what were your challenges before we started working together?
Well, so one of my main challenges was that I've struggled with kind of having my feel good weight, let's call it that, for quite some time. So I've tried a lot of diets, I've tried to do more exercise, and nothing that I've tried gave me a permanent or a long term success. And um, I'm not someone who easily sticks to a diet or a plan for a very long time. I find that boring. And I think at some stage I just got to the realization that this is not something that's going to work in the long term for me. So I was looking at options. What could I do to change? And I'm not someone who has a lot of soft drinks. I'm not someone who has a lot of takeaways. So or a lot of alcohol. Like that's what a lot of people do, who can just um, kind of spare some calories there and then lose weight because they don't have it. But I don't have it to start with. So it's not really something I can change. So I thought, okay, my diet is not unhealthy. I think what I eat is good, but I must make some mistakes because otherwise I wouldn't have that problem. Um, and then when we started to work together, it actually pretty much became quickly obvious that my main problem was that I kept snacking and eating and all that in the evenings without even being hungry, just because I could. And then coming to a point where I felt like, okay, well now I've had something anyway, so I might as well just carry on. So breaking through that habit was certainly my biggest challenge throughout this journey.
hmm Okay, yeah. So make kind of realizing, because sometimes we, like I always say, we can't change what we're not aware of,
Hmm.
right? So for you, what it sounds like, becoming aware of where are the extra calories that are coming in without us even remembering or noticing it, and then making those changes there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So what is it that I guess drawn you to working with me? Like, what did you find was different about it?
Well, what kind of appealed to me was that it was actually not about talking about that you would not tell me what to eat and how to adjust my diet. Unless I would have asked you to, you could have probably given me some advice there, and at times you have. But I knew that the type of food I eat and the diet I eat is not bad, but I obviously did something wrong, because otherwise I wouldn't have gained so much weight. So over the years, like not anything on a short term, but I didn't. I felt I would like to change my behavior to be able to continue for that with a long time, because with all the other things that I had tried, like diets and doing more exercise, and I'm not saying more exercise isn't good, but it was just not something that I could have sustained for like having an hour of exercise 6 days a week. I don't really have that time, and I didn't enjoy it either, to be fair. So I wanted to make adjustments to my behavior more than to what I eat. Actually, it was more about how do I do it right.
Mm.
And when I stumbled across your website, it was more like that. That really appeals to me. It's not someone who's going to tell me, this is what you eat for breakfast, this is what you eat for lunch, this is what you eat for dinner, and you're not allowed to have anything in between. And one of the other big factors was that if you look up nutritionists or some people who help you with these things, they catch up with you once every fortnight if you're lucky, or maybe only once a month. But I knew with my problem that I had, I would need more frequent consultations just to keep going. It's if I would have had a month between our first and our second consultation, I would have failed. That's just how I'm designed. I yeah, like I will just start to cheat on myself if it is a longer time. And there's probably a problem a lot of people have, that it's easy for a few days and then it gets hard, but that's actually when you need someone to talk to. That now I'm getting to a point where it's really hard. What can I do? Have you got any idea? Instead of having a good few days and then terrible 3 weeks, and then we start at the beginning again, we go back to square one with now a higher frustration level. Um, so that is what I wanted. I didn't want a plan on what to eat and when to eat, and I didn't want to restrict myself with not having certain types of foods. I wanted something I thought it must be something about my behavior more than anything else, and that's what I wanted to change. But it wasn't something that was easy to identify just by myself. So that's what I needed some help with.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so it was more so like why and when and how much I eat, and more like the behaviors. Why am I doing that? That's what it sounds, and the frequency, because we were catching up every weekly, so
Yes.
it's enough time, I guess, for us to
To see
keep that
small,
momentum going.
yeah, and to have small changes and having
Mm.
some kind of a positive, uh, like a little bit of success. And even if you have a little bit of a drawback, it's not too bad. It's
Mm.
like not a complete disaster. Um, so because yeah, the disaster's there, so you might as well just, oh well, don't care about it for the next 3 weeks, and then we'll have the next consultation, and then we can start again. Which was probably my before pattern, saying like, okay, I'm going to commit to something, but not so much, and then I might commit to it again in a few weeks' time, or not at all.
Yeah.
So having this more frequent on a regular basis was personally for me very helpful.
Okay. Okay. All right. And when did you notice the changes? Like, when did you notice that something is working for you?
I think I noticed it relatively quickly. So we made those little adjustments, which then made me realize, like, okay, that's probably not quite the problem. So it was more like, in the beginning we said, have something kind of sweet as part of your diet, like have um, some kind of little piece of chocolate as a dessert after lunch. And then I realized, oh, I'm actually not because I felt I'm craving sweets, but then realizing after 2 weeks, that's actually not the problem. Now I'm craving savory. Like now I want something like pretzels. But then integrating that into my normal diet and have a little bit of that, not even every day anymore. I used to in the beginning, just because I felt I needed that, but now I don't. And that made a big difference because I knew I can have it without without feeling guilty about it.
Yeah.
I think that made a big difference as well. And that is something I realized, when was that? Maybe halfway through, when I was at work, and I got a chocolate bar. And one of my colleagues said, like, oh, are you going to tell Eugenia about that? And I said, like, yeah, of course I will. Like, but she looked at me and he was like, really? And I said, yeah, well, that's okay. It's not that I cannot eat that. I made a conscious decision to have this as my snack, and that will be my snack for today. And this is not something I have every day or 3 times a day. And of course, it's okay to talk about it. And she was very surprised. And I thought, like, oh, okay. So if she would have asked me without me seeing you, I would have most likely had a very guilty conscience to that I had something sweet in between meals. But it was okay that day. And yeah, but that was a little bit of a one of those kind of, oh, okay. I would not have answered that way right at the beginning.
Right.
I
Yeah.
would have felt bad about it.
Yeah.
And then at some stage I didn't. And I thought, no, that's okay. I do that. And yeah, so just I think what really what has really changed is that I'm not feeling bad about having certain things. I find it easier to have a small amount of what I like without overeating on it,
Mm.
which I would have done beforehand, saying like, okay, now I had something, I might as well carry on.
Mm.
And not because I enjoyed it. It was more like frustration and disappointment that I couldn't stop by myself. And I was like, okay, well, doesn't matter now. But actually, it does. And not feeling guilty when you have that 1 or 2 pieces of chocolate to start with is actually what makes a difference.
Mm.
That it's that you can say that's okay, I have that, and then I can put it away and don't look at it for the next few days.
Mm.
Um, but not this kind of, okay, so now I've started, so I carry on.
Mm.
So that was certainly something that I did, that I sometimes catch myself going towards that, but I can say, hey, wait, you're not doing this anymore, right?
Yeah, yeah, yes, and it will be like that, right? We're just
Yep.
human, we will go back to old ways of thinking and habits, but the great thing is we have the tools that we always can go back to. and
Yeah.
apply.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what were your main goals when we started working together, or before?
Yeah. So, I mean, my it's not that I feel or that I felt terrible when we started if it comes to my weight. Like I was actually I'm okay with myself. It's not that I hate myself or my body or anything like that. But I've noticed that my blood pressure went up a little bit. I do have a family history of diabetes, and I started snoring, which is probably the most annoying part about all that. So that I felt if I can just lose that little bit and fit into my favorite clothing again, that would actually be enough. Like the goal was never to halve myself, never, and it still isn't. Um, and it was more for health reasons than for anything else. And certainly, one of the goals was and still is to not become even more, which I have achieved. And I've fit into quite a few of my favorite clothes. Not in all of them yet, but that's okay. It was never like that was something we discussed at the first meeting as well. I said I don't want to go on a scale ever again.
Mm,
It's not about what my scale tells me. It's about how I feel.
mm,
Um, and I feel good, and I will hopefully in a few months' time fit into those other clothes that I don't fit in yet, and that's okay. There was no rush. It's going into the right direction, and that's what I wanted. And my main, like I told you, I want to fit into this clothes again. He said, "Why is it important?" And it's actually not so important, apart from I like those clothes, but I actually would like my blood pressure to be normal again, to then lower my risk for getting diabetes, and I want the snoring to stop.
mm.
Um, so that is like that were my main goals, to get back to having that under control without needing medical help, actually.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I want to emphasize we never focused on, like what you said, what you're eating. Like we
Oh,
talked about lunches, we talked a little bit about mainly actually to take lunches with you, but we really never really talked about the specifics of what you eat, and how much you eat, and more so like why and when. That was our main focus, and then it was, I think, mainly really to implement those habits and then really integrate those habits until they become a habit and they're part of you.
yeah. So I think one of the challenges was to not go to the cafeteria and have a lunch that I actually don't enjoy,
Mm,
but preparing my lunches and take them to work. And that was in the beginning a very big challenge, because it was just like, oh gosh, I have to do something else before I can, like in the evening, kind of go to the more relaxing part. I have to prepare dinner. I have to prepare, so I make dinner and then I have to prepare lunch. But that became a habit now. Like I every now and again I spoil myself and get some sushi at work. So that's like the very special day that I have every now and again.
mhm.
But otherwise I'll have lunches and I'll prepare my lunch at the time that I prepare dinner, and then it's done and it's sorted for the next day. And that is something that definitely has changed and made a big difference.
Yeah, yeah,
And I enjoy it much more. Like I know what I'm eating, and that's good.
yeah,
Like I don't think I ate a terrible diet when I got something from the cafeteria, but it wasn't what I would usually eat, and not something that most of the time I didn't particularly enjoy it. So personally, I feel food should be something that you enjoy as well. Like that's how I see it. I don't want to eat something that I don't like.
no,
So
because usually what happens is when we eat something that we don't really enjoy and don't receive really that pleasure, we will then go and seek food that we will get pleasure from. And usually then it ends up with, okay, let me get something sweet as well.
of course, it's always something sweet in those things. A nice slice over there, maybe I'll have that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you find your most tangible results, I guess?
um, that I actually have stopped for most of the time, not always, but to actually think about what I eat.
Mm,
So I used to think about, oh, okay, so I've had this for breakfast, I've had this for lunch, that was my dinner, and maybe I can fit in something small at the end, which then became something big and was never small, and then caused a lot of frustration. To now basically having like, okay, I've got my 3 meals. I always got my nuts in the bag, just for bad times, and for a snack if I need one. And I now have, for most days, I have a piece of fruit as dessert for dinner, and it actually does the trick.
Mm.
And yes, every now and again, I still feel like I would like to have 3 pretzels or 4 chippies, and then I'll do it.
Yeah.
And certainly, it has happened as well that watching a movie, having a bag of chips, yes, that has happened.
Yeah.
But I'm not feeling bad about it because it's not something that happens every day. It's like that one occasion once a month when you do that. Um, and that is something I really learned throughout this journey with you, that it is okay. And if that is the biggest thing that I've learned, and it is okay, then I'm very happy with that. To not feel bad about what I eat. I think this is something I have done for a very long time, that I felt bad about eating something to a point that I was then disappointed and kept overeating,
Yeah.
because I was already disappointed anyway, so I might as well just carry on. And that is, uh, I think I've always done that when I think about it, and it's a terrible feeling, um, and it makes you very unhappy at the same time. And that was certainly something I wanted to change. Yeah, and even though I'm still not wearing a size 6, which I never will, and that is fine, I'm way more content with myself, I think I'd say.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not perfect. I never will be. I will keep having those little thoughts like, oh, I might just, no, we're not carrying on. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've had this habit for such a long time that I can't even remember. I can't remember when it started. I think it must have been for a very, very long time. And it's not something that's going to change overnight. So it's actually very surprising that such a relatively short time of 3 months has made such a huge difference, um, behavior wise.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, if I summarize it, like you're saying, not feeling guilty about food that, let's say those high palatable foods, right? If it's something sweet or if it's like some chips or pretzels, then having your lunch, like making your lunch or take your lunch with you, that just more like a habit. It's just what you do, and also being able to fit into more of your clothes that you really wanted to wear.
Yes, I refuse to buy new ones in a bigger size. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So anything else you would like to say or add? Anything I haven't asked?
No, not. I don't want to ask anything, but I would like to thank you for taking me on this journey and helping me with those things that I somehow deep inside, I guess I knew, but I needed someone else to tell me and go through it with me. And I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you.